Imagine being in the room when Stalin ate his meals, hearing every conversation, witnessing every late-night meeting, knowing which officials were about to disappear. Now imagine surviving that knowledge for decades during the Great Purge, when a single wrong word meant death. One man did exactly that. His name was Spiridon Ivanovich Putin, Vladimir Putin's grandfather. And the story of how he survived might explain everything about the man who rules Russia today. Spiridon was born in 1879 into a dirt-poor peasant family in the Tver Governorate. At age 15, he made a decision that would change his family's destiny. He traveled to St. Petersburg to master the culinary arts. For 5 years, he worked in the city's finest restaurants, learning not just French cuisine, but the art of becoming invisible in rooms where power lived and breathed. And that's when something extraordinary happened. At the prestigious Hotel Astoria, a young Spiridon served Grigory Rasputin. The mad monk was so impressed he gave Spiridon a gold ruble and made a strange comment about their similar surnames. Putin's grandfather served the man who symbolized the empire's corruption. Just before that, empire collapsed into revolution. That's not a coincidence, that's an omen. After the Bolsheviks seized power, Spiridon fled to the countryside. But by the early 1920s, he was back, cooking at the elite Gorky sanatorium. His first major client, Vladimir Lenin himself. Spiridon cooked for Lenin until the dictator died in 1924. Then he continued serving Lenin's widow throughout the 1930s. And during this period, something critical happened. Spiridon was recruited by the NKVD, the secret police that would become the KGB. He wasn't just a chef anymore. He was an operative embedded in the heart of Soviet power. By the late 1930s, the height of Stalin's purges, Spiridon was transferred to the Ilyinsky guest house, where only the absolute elite vacationed. Ministers, party secretaries. Even Khrushchev brought his mother there. But the most important guest came in secret. Joseph Stalin would arrive discreetly to savor his favorite Georgian lamb dish, a meal only Spiridon could prepare to perfection. Years later, Putin's grandfather would describe Stalin as demanding yet fair. This is a man who witnessed the Great Purge firsthand, who saw officials arrive for dinner and never leave. And his assessment was demanding yet fair. What did Spiridon see in those kitchens? What secrets did he carry? We'll never know. Because Spiridon understood the most important rule: silence. Here's the real mystery. How did he survive when thousands around him vanished into the gulags? The answer lies in 3 principles that would shape his grandson's entire approach to power. First, absolute discipline. Spiridon held the keys to cellars containing the finest cognacs and wines in the Soviet Union. No one ever saw him drunk. One moment of loose lips could end everything. Second, incorruptible honesty. Despite having 6 children at home and access to the finest food in Russia, Spiridon never took a single piece home. His principle was simple: if it's not allowed, it's not allowed. By being beyond reproach, he made himself untouchable. Third, strategic irreplaceability. Spiridon never used written recipes. No one else could replicate Stalin's favorite dish. He made himself indispensable. And here's the audacity. If the ingredients weren't perfect, he'd take off his apron and refuse to cook. In Stalin's Soviet Union, saying no could get you killed, but Spiridon said it regularly. He could because he'd made himself too valuable to lose. Despite his peasant origins, Spiridon was educated and well-read. And he never gossiped, never dropped names, never hinted at secrets. In a world built on betrayal, Spiridon Putin became famous for his silence. The family paid a terrible price. 2 of Spiridon's sons were killed in World War II. Vladimir Sr., the president's father, was severely wounded fighting with an NKVD destruction battalion. Yet Spiridon survived it all, retiring with a modest pension and dying in 1965 at age 86. His grandson, Vladimir Putin, was only 12 years old, but those summer visits left a mark. In his autobiography, Putin dedicates an entire section to his grandfather, a man of few words but absolute integrity, who could spend hours staring at a fishing float, lost in thought. What was Spiridon thinking about during those silences? Stalin's dinners, the colleagues who vanished? We'll never know. He took those secrets to the grave. But we know what he taught his grandson. Spiridon once confessed he wasn't proud of his profession. Everything he made was eaten, leaving no trace. He wished he'd become an engineer or architect. He wanted his family to escape the cycle of serving power. But here's the irony. His grandson didn't just serve power, he seized it. Look at the parallels. Spiridon survived through discipline, silence, and making himself indispensable. Putin rose through the KGB, the successor to the NKVD that once employed his grandfather, using the exact same principles. When Boris Yeltsin needed someone he could trust, Putin made himself the obvious choice. But there's a crucial difference. Spiridon used these principles to survive in a system ruled by others. Putin used them to take control of the system itself. The servant became the master. Today, Putin is famous for his self-control. He rarely shows emotion. He's secretive about his personal life, his wealth, his plans. He demands absolute loyalty. He makes himself indispensable to Russia's elite. Sound familiar? It's his grandfather's playbook, adapted for the 21st century. But here's the haunting question. What would Spiridon think of his grandson now? Would he be proud that a Putin finally holds ultimate power? Or would he be horrified that his lessons in survival became lessons in domination? Spiridon never wanted to be remembered. He thought his work meant nothing, left no trace. His grandson has made sure he'll never be forgotten. The chef who cooked for dictators shaped the ruler of modern Russia. In that two-room apartment where Spiridon spent his final years, the seeds of today's Russia were planted. That's the real legacy. Not the meals he cooked, but the philosophy he passed down. Discipline, silence, control. The tragedy is that Vladimir Putin learned those lessons too well. The servant's descendant became exactly what the servant spent his life serving. Did Spiridon Putin create a survivor, or did he create a dictator? Maybe in Russia there's no difference.